Hello. I hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July holiday and you're ready to attack the last couple weeks of this semester and finish out strong. We are moving into Module 8, which is exciting because there are only 10 total, and so we are really getting near the finish line. So keep up the good work. I know you're tired. I know it's hard balancing your summer schedules and your school schedules, but we're almost there and you're doing a great job, so keep it up. As we move into Module 8 and Chapter 10, you only have the one chapter, so that is nice. You have your typical assignments that you could have predicted, your discussion board post and replies, as well as your quiz for the chapter and your project. Let me talk a little bit about the content in this chapter, and then we'll spend some time looking at your project and your discussion board post. This chapter focuses on incorporating literature into your classroom. So in earlier modules, we talked about different trade books and some poetry, but mainly trade books that you could incorporate into your classroom for a specific skill or a specific strategy. And these books really lent themselves to that skill. For example, maybe a phonics skill or a comprehension strategy that you wanted to work with your students on. Now we're taking it a step further and we're pulling in different types of literature. And literature can often be more challenging for students, especially our English language learners, because their experience with literature is much lower, and especially experience in English would be much lower. So it's important as a teacher for us to incorporate a variety of types of literature into the classroom so our students, so all of our students, can build that experience in learning how to approach these types of literature, how to engage with these types of literature, and then how to respond to these types of literature. Now, when I talk about literature, I'm talking about novels or short stories, poetry, music lyrics, and so forth. And so before in our trade books, the content was very literal. Students could read it and they didn't have to always draw a lot of conclusions. Some of them they do, but in general the material is very literal. When we're working with literature, it's not as literal, and they have to really read between the lines to understand what the author is trying to say. So they have to pull from their different comprehension strategies. They have to pull from their knowledge base of vocabulary and then their word attack strategies, both for decoding and for determining the meaning of the vocabulary term. They have to pull from their background knowledge. They have to activate their background knowledge and really think about how that information can lay the groundwork for the content of the literature piece. They have to really pull at their critical thinking skills, their critical literacy skills, if you will, but also how to draw inferences, how to reach valid conclusions based on their background knowledge and the material that they're presented with. They have to look at plot lines and why perhaps the author chose certain plot lines or storylines for that piece of literature, and so forth. So as you go through the different activities over the course of this module, really think about that and how you can help your students through modeling and direct instruction and collaborative activities, as well as independent activities for them to really engage with that literature and build that experience. Now, several of you are focused on a certain content area in your program as well as your career, and that is fine. Incorporating literature into the content areas is valuable and important. History especially, you'll find quite a bit of carryover between different literary pieces and history, but certainly in science and math and so forth. So as you go through this module, again, really think about how you can apply all of this to your classroom. And as you go through different activities, really try, as you've been doing all semester, but try to choose those activities that you could then apply, and you can turn around and use them right in your classroom come fall. Okay, let's go ahead and look in Blackboard. And let me pull this up. As we're looking at Module 8, okay, here we go. All right, as you're looking at Module 8, you've got your normal setup here, your objectives. We are going to be talking about reader response theory, close reading, response journals, readers theater, and so forth. You're going to look at some of the basic principles and strategies for how to teach literature and the different types of literature that you could incorporate, as well as how to determine which pieces of literature might be appropriate for your students, based both on a skill basis, but also on an interest basis. So you're going to look at their interests and abilities in order to decide which types of literature you will bring into the classroom. And this is a perfect opportunity for your individual groups, or for your group work, and they can break up into different groups and use different pieces of literature based on their interests and their abilities. Okay. All right, your Module 8 assignments for Chapter 10, as I said earlier, right on target with what you've done before. Okay. You've got your discussion board post and your Chapter 10 quiz, and then your Project 8. I'll go ahead and talk about discussion board, and then we will look at the project. Okay. All right. This is a post first discussion forum, so you're very familiar with this. You need to post yours, and then it will open it up and you can see all of your classmates. For your discussion board, you're going to develop a character analysis lesson. Okay, so you may choose a literary piece of your choice. Again, if you're in a content area, choose one that's specific to that content area, because of course the idea here is that you can then turn around and use this in one of your classrooms, or your classmates can. A great place to share these lessons. You're going to provide that reference for the literary piece, identify what type of literary piece it is, the genre, and a brief summary of that piece. Okay. Again, this part shouldn't be surprising, but you've got your grade level and your objectives for the activity. And then you're going to look in Chapter 10, Figure 10.2, it talks about creating a character chart. And so you'll create a character chart based on that piece of literature. And you'll draw your inferences about the character based on the content in the literature. Okay, and so you can put in a grid just as they have it in Figure 10.2 and apply that directly to this literary piece you've chosen. Okay, and then you'll make that connection to the literature. I hope that you'll enjoy this. Okay, certainly we do this naturally as we are reading different pieces of literature, but this is a great way to show your students how to draw conclusions about the characters, so that as the characters make different choices or behave in certain ways, or do certain things throughout the piece, the students can better understand why and what the meaning is behind that. Okay, so then in your responses to two classmates, just as you've been doing all along, provide feedback for the lesson, and then share one additional inference or piece of support for that character chart. Okay, I know you may not have access to the full piece, but if you do, go ahead and you can add an inference, or you can give some extra support for that character. While I'm mentioning this, if you do have a link to a digital version of the literary piece, definitely include that as well. That will be helpful for your classmates, especially if they want to use this going into the classroom. Okay. All right, so that's your character analysis discussion board. Let's go ahead and go into the project so that you can see the activities we have here. And I think you'll be pleased. There are only 4 activities in this project. Okay, whoops, as I'm already scrolling through it by accident. All right, you've got your Project 8 templates. Make it a little bit bigger for you. Okay. As you're working through Chapter 10, you have a handful of terms. This type of activity is very similar, obviously, to what you've been doing all semester. The key here is that I want you to make sure to apply it to your classroom. So again, if you're a content area specialist, you'll want to apply this to the history or the math or the science classroom. If you're an elementary classroom teacher, you'll want to make sure to apply it to that level. One note here, and I sent a message about this a week or two ago, and I've been giving individuals feedback on their past projects. Do make sure that all of this work is in your own words. Yes, you can pull your definition or some information from a different source, but you must paraphrase and then cite that source. All students have access to the Safe Assign report that comes up, and it checks your project and your work against anything else that has been submitted to Blackboard, as well as the website, different websites. So certainly take some time to look at that Safe Assign report. You can access that straight from, once you submit it, you can access the report. Okay, and if you have any questions about that, certainly let me know. All right, so you've got your terms here. Activity 2 and Activity 3, you will have, you'll work with specific literature circles and reader response theory. So it gives you an opportunity to actually walk yourself through a literature circle. Okay, you'll get to watch one in action and then apply that to your classroom. With reader response and close reading, let's see, it's not wanting to scroll. Hold on one second. Let me go ahead and move this so that we can scroll up for you. All right, for Activity 3, there we go. For Activity 3, with reader response and close reading, you're going to use a specific poem, The Land of Counterpane by Robert Louis Stevenson, and then I've given you specific steps to complete as you go through this this reader response and close reading activity. So really the beginning few steps you're going through as the student, and so you get to see it from the student standpoint, and then toward the end I want you to answer some questions from the teacher's perspective. You can answer these questions right within, after number 1, you can just press enter and put in your information. It would be helpful if you did it in a different color font so that it's easy to see what we have in there. Okay, all right, and then your last activity is a lesson plan activity where you're going to go to this website. Sarah Dennis Shaw has a lesson plan using double entry journals, and so it helps students to make connections within their literature. And so she's guiding them through that process of making connections to expand their literature. So there are different tabs that go through information. It's a great resource that you can use throughout your career, really. But you can use the information within the textbook and on this website and create your own lesson plan for a literary piece of your choice. You certainly can use the same piece of literature that you chose for your discussion forum. That would make sense. You can certainly change a different one, okay, if you would like. You can select a poem or a classic piece of literature. Typically, it's going to be best to do it 3rd grade and above, just because your students' comprehension levels will be much higher. So that's my suggestion here for that. And then I've walked you through, it's got the different stages and the different strategies to put in here, and just enter your information right within this template. Again, it would be helpful if you did it in a different color font so that it stood out. Okay. All right, and so that is the end of Project 8 for Chapter 10, which is nice. It's a relatively short one in terms of the number of activities, especially after some of your projects where you've had 2 chapters that you've worked with. So hopefully you'll find that to be a nice little break for you. Okay. All right. One last thing that I want to point out, and let me come back into Blackboard for this. Want to make sure, and I mentioned this in the last couple modules as well, but I want to make sure that you're spending some time with your culminating assessments. Okay. Again, your final exam won't be open until right at the end of the semester, but your philosophy of teaching literacy statement, you should be adding to this and editing it and adjusting it throughout the semester. So make sure that you are spending some time thinking about how you're applying each of these skills to your philosophy of literacy statement. Okay, and that is due at the end of the semester. Some students have asked if you can turn that in early. You certainly can. I would suggest, certainly you can have your draft and pretty close to being final. I would wait until you get through that last module, just in case there's anything from that module that you would like to incorporate into your literacy statement. Okay. All right. So let me come back here to your course content. Okay, so you've got Module 8. You've got 2 more modules after that. Module 9 works with Chapter 11, and then Module 10 works with Chapters 12 and 13. There are 2 chapters there from Module 10. And that brings you right up to August 1st, and then you've got a couple days to complete your final exam and turn in your philosophy statement. Some students have also asked if you can finish the class early. And several of you are working ahead of schedule to accommodate for different travel plans or things happening over the summer. That is perfectly fine if you want to complete the course early. Touch base with me as you're getting close to finishing your last module so that I can open your final exam early for you. Okay, if you're planning on finishing mid to late July, for example. If you want to finish all your modules and then take a little break and then come back and do your final exam, that's fine. Just touch base with me and we'll work through that on a case-by-case basis. Okay, but for most of you, you're following right along with the due dates here. So everything here for Module 8 will be due by Sunday, July 16th. Then Module 9, July 23rd. And then your final module by August 1st. Okay, all right. So again, if you have any questions as you're going through any of this work, just let me know. But enjoy working with literature in the classroom in this module. Okay, have a great day.